Azukukamuko kakera nnyo mama akolako wannyo alina okulabirira abato school fees okusoma n'ebitabo olusi tebalina nga n'ekyokulya okukifuna baguba yatetenkanya yayiya ebyensulako n'ebyokulya omukyala basirika baguma banyigirizibwa naye bakola independent woman, African woman. Oh, muchala. Singa si muchala. Singa sasoma. Singa saiga. Singa si mambo. Singa sakula. Singa si muchala. Singa sasoma. Singa saiga. Singa si mambo. Singa sakula. Teberezanga ali lubuto akabanga kawanvu ku hospital kale sirinyawo tazirina natambulawo sina kinjaza alidde ku kkubo ate wali ayamba naguma yennyabo bagumira biki olugendo lw'okukuza omwana galuwaavu banyikivu bakola bebakyala singa tafunye yadde nyabo ewaka byonna yabimala okwambala sako n'eddwaliro mama nyikira nnyo she's so hard working and mankind she's a woman of integrity a mother omukyala my mama, you must sing
All right. Happy Mother's Day to you all. My name is Henry Sally, and this is the African Alumni Association. I come in peace. Mbagaliza emikisa ekisa n'okusaasirwa. Mwena bibere namwe. My name is Henry Sally. I'm talking to you on behalf of the University of Toronto African Alumni Association. And I'm here to talk about a few things in regard to the state of the nation in Uganda, what's going on in Uganda, and why is it important for us to engage in these conversations. Before I start, for many of you who have heard about the annual African Descent Summit, it is happening on July 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So if you haven't registered and you are in Canada or the US or even Europe, this is the time for you to register and come join us in this important discussion. If you are in Uganda and you haven't yet registered, you are probably late. kubanga okunoonyeza visa essaawa zino onateeramu application yo oteekemu paperwork. It's going to be a lot of hassle for you, and you may not have enough time for immigration to evaluate your application. However, if you feel like you want to actually submit nga paperwork yo omulaba ali mulungi nga tolina bizibu birala byonna byonna, you are most welcome to register. Genda ku website osobole okuregisteringa. That is one of the things that I want to tell you today. I want to talk about other things that have transpired over the last couple of days. For instance, we all know what has been happening in Uganda. We know that one of the most influential vloggers, Mr. Isma Olaxess, erinnya eryo Olaxess lyali deliberate, according to some of the conversations I've had from Ismail or Isma Olaxess, nga litegeeza nti bwe yafuna empapula Sweden, he became all access. He could access everything, in other words, in Sweden. Eventually, he left that country, went back to Uganda. Naye nga kitalo nnyo njagala okutwala omukisa guno okusaasira family ya Isma Olaxess, commonly known as Jjajja Ichuli. Njagala n'okusaasira families z'abantu abaafa prior to that, nga Minister eyafa, the Minister of State for Labour, I believe, Mr. Charles Engola. Kitalo nnyo okuba nti no yafa, mu nfa gye yafaamu. Kitalo nnyo okubeera nti no his God also died in the way that he did. It's very unfortunate. I send my sincere condolences to the family members of all the deceased. I also send condolences to the family of the Indian or the Asian Indian, actually, Indian for investor who was killed by his guard, not guard, by a police officer. Munsonyiwe katono. Ntuusa n'okusaasira eri abo bonna bonna abafiiriddwako abantu baabwe mu kaseera kano. Again, happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there who have done everything they could to see that we live a comfortable life. Now, from that conversation back to some of the issues that have been happening, namely the death of Isma Olaxess. If you have taken time to read my preamble, you will realize that I have taken trouble to explain a little bit of what is going on and how Ismail described himself. For most Ugandan elites, Ismail was perceived as someone who was controversial, right? As someone who was controversial. However, Jjajja Ichuli did not describe himself as controversial. Instead, he described himself as a storyteller, a situational storyteller. In other words, is someone who could engage in many of different conversations. Of course, he could talk about things contextually. Kusinzira ku context kijayogerako. This is a guy who was very, very well conversant in sports. He was very well conversant in economics. Of course, as a BBA student, it is not surprising that he could interrogate issues about economics and businesses in Uganda to the level that he did. Of course, he also had a very respectable interpretation of the political situations in Uganda. For every person who had the opportunity to engage with some of his analysis, you cannot take away the fact that even when most of us thought that this guy was controversial, he still did have something interesting to offer, something that you could learn from, something that you and I could interrogate further and get something interesting or get to know nti ddala ddala omusajja ono kyayogedde bwe nzirayo emabega n'ekirowoozaako, there is value in that conversation, right? So this guy could talk about so many different things and fairly well. It's unfortunate that we did lose him. It is very saddening that we lost him in the manner within which we did lose him. But I want to encourage all vloggers in Uganda, all vloggers in Europe, all vloggers in the United States of America, in Canada, and all over the world, that this is not the time for us to give up. Certainly, this is not the time for us to keep quiet, especially if we end up proving that another prominent political analyst in Fazir MAYANJA was detained at Entebbe Airport on his way back to Uganda. Bwe kibanga ddala kituufu nga Fazir MAYANJA bamukwatiddeko airport nga azzeeyo e Uganda, certainly this is not the time for us to keep quiet, to stay silent, to give up on keeping our society accountable. Our motherland is important to all of us. Uganda yaffe ffenna. Tetugenda kusirika olw'ensonga nti baakubye Isma Olaxess amasasi ne bamutta mu ngeri gye baamuseemu. Tetugenda kusirika nti olw'okubanga batta Jjajja Nadduli. Tetugenda kusirika nti olw'okubanga batta Kirumira. Ekitegeera, bun'olwekyo tusirike kubanga bwe tutaasirike naffe bajja kutukimako. Nedda, that's not how it's going to work. Njagala okutwala omukisa guno to encourage all vloggers, all bloggers, all people who are influencers on Uganda's political landscape to double down on your responsibility to keep our society, to keep our leaders accountable. Before Isma died, in his last vlog, he had promised to look into the actions of National Council of Sports. He had pledged to look into the actions of KCCA. He had pledged to look into the actions of the management at Nambole. N'olw'ensonga eyo, to keep Isma's memory decent and well respected, we must pursue what he was pursuing. We need to pursue it. We must do it. But before we do that, we need to ensure that the government understands that it is not going to be business as usual. The notion that you are going to detain people who come to Uganda, batabeera Uganda. Kati nga mwe mwakutte Fazil Monday. I have not established the truth surrounding Fazil Monday's arrest. I don't know for sure if he was arrested. Because I do not have the details of his travel. And this is very important. I tried to find out if this was true, but I couldn't ascertain it. First of all, because nabadde simanyi flight number ya Fazil MAYANJA gye yatutte ssaawa mmeka z'abadde alina kutuuka Uganda. Of course, sina access ku family ye, so I couldn't get all those details. And with that shortcoming, I couldn't verify any of this information. nga mpita mu some of my contacts nabadde nsobola okuyitamu okukakasa omusajja yatuuse Uganda yayise mu immigration oba teyagiyiseemu oba teyayise mu immigration where at what point was he stopped nkitegeera and what do we need to do to figure out why he was detained if he was detained nkitegeera these are important questions that we need to ask. The same thing goes to the death of Isma Olaxess. Many of us are trying to analyze how he was murdered. We do not know why he was murdered or how, under what circumstances he was murdered. We do know a few things. We know he was assassinated. He was shot at a close range. Naye bamukubisizza ki? Bamukubisizza pistol oba bamukubisizza mmundu nene? Those are things we don't know yet, right? Nekirala kye tumanyi, according to the videos we have seen, we also know that his driver was with him and he went out of the car, then he came back, he tried to get certain things. Kye tutamanyi right now, where driver we ali ludda wa, essimu ya driver we eri ludda wa, essimu ya Isma eri ludda wa. Who was the last person to call him? What did they talk about? And how did he end up in such a situation at such a time? Now, we cannot always trust the government of Uganda to do all the investigations and give us all the truth. Which means ffe ng'abantu bannayuganda, ffe ng'aba civilians, we need to do some backward mapping to understand some of those situations ezabaddewo, then we can extrapolate tusobole okutegeera Isma, this is how bamusewe bati. Kubanga tutamala okutegeera gundi eyo chronology ya movements za Isma, perhaps then we can try to understand ani yamuse na lwaki yamuse. Of course, bw'obanga wawuliriza bulungi conversations ezabaddewo during the late minister's urology in parliament, you could speculate nti maybe analysis gye yakola nga minisita afudde yanyiiza either family ya minisita oyo oba mikwano gye oba ba colleagues be abali mu UPDF, and perhaps any of those people could have been driven by that anger and emotions and came after Isma and took his life. But those are not the only people in the picture. Of course, we know that Isma was pro Museveni, and he was also pro MK project, right? And we also know that our government is not a one-pillar government. Together, enough pillars in nyingi. So many different factions within that government. I don't know how it functions, but it does function. And it functions in the way that it functions right now. Nkitegeera mulimu abantu bali mu government nga tebagala MK project. Of late, Isma abadde becoming so pro MK project. But we don't know if when he signed up for whatever he signed up for, he signed up initially for the MK project or for other people. So there is what most people call the mafia section or the mafia faction within government. We all know, or at least we assume, who is the leader of the mafia faction within government. So that faction could have had some sort of interest in eliminating Isma Olaxess. Kakati bw'abanga mikwano gya minisita yafudde oba famire ye oba mikwano gye ba comrades aba UPDF bw'abanga si bebase Isma. That's one situation. What I'm trying to do is called situational analysis. kakati eyo situation bwe banga abo si bamuse nkitegeera then muyinza okubeeramu abantu ba mafias nga bebakoze eki be bamuse abakulira ba mafia mu gavumenti tubamanyi oba we assume to know who they are. They could have had an interest in eliminating him. Bwe baba nga be bamugjeewo nga bataking advantage of the audios or the vlogs he made in that week ne basalawo omugjawo because mukkirize oba mugaane Isma Olaxess was an effective communicator. Kitegeera. If he wasn't communicating on your behalf, chances are that is a guy who would want to be eliminated if you are the mafia in Uganda. Kitegeera. Omusajja obadde oyagala ayogerera eggwe n'owulira nga atayogerera projekiti ndala gy'otamugamba kwogerera, the best way to stop him from promoting your opponent is to eliminate him. Kitegeera. But there are certain sections in society who also think that this could have been from the opposition. So if it's from the opposition, who would be interested in eliminating Olaxess, Isma Olaxess? So we need to think about all these situations. Bani, who are all among all those different pieces, who would be most interested in eliminating Isma Olaxess? Once we figure out tujja kola elimination gund methods tulabe ono ayinza okuba ayagala omugjawo naye ddala yabadde n'obusobozi obumugjawo oba teyabadde na busobozi bumugjawo ani omulala abadde n'obusobozi obumugjawo. Nkitegeera kigenda natulaga gavumenti yaffe ekyalina capacity to foster security in Uganda. Does Mr. Museveni's government have the capacity? Government ya Mwai Museveni ekyalina capacity enforcing security mu Uganda. Kubanga bweba tegiyina, then we need to start figuring out a way to protect ourselves. But for all those people who were offended by Mr. Isma Olaxess's analysis, because in that last week before his death, he offended so many people. He offending abantu bangi nnyo nga mwe muli Shiba, mwe muli ono mukyala wa Bujingo, mwe muli family ya minister ye yafa. There are so many people that he offended. Like when you go back and look at some of his analysis that week, you could see so many people could potentially come for his life. But for those people who felt so offended that the only solution they had was to eliminate the guy, I want to tell you this thing. We need to be tolerant. We need to defend freedom of expression at all costs, even when that freedom of expression potentially offends us. We must have the audacity to defend freedom of expression. It is important to defend it. One of the reasons for you people who are philosophers or who have studied, who have engaged with philosophy, political philosophy, or even just plain philosophy, those people who have had an opportunity to engage with Socrates and the apology, you understand that 501 jurors led by Meletus decided to put Socrates on death row under the allegation that he was corrupting the youth. Naye nga kye bayitanga corrupting the youth during that period kwali nga kwogera mazima mu society, kubuuza bibuuzo bizibu. Obuuza ebibuuzo, you question questions and question answers as well. And that pissed off the status quo, it pissed off the elites of Athens, to the extent that when Socrates was put before the 501 jurors, they convicted him. They said he was guilty and convicted him to death. Naye Socrates ne baamuwa omukisa okutoloka. Yagaana n'agamba nze sigenda genda mu exile. Sigenda kutoloka kubanga bwe nnaatoloka nja kuba sikkiririza mu nnono ya Athens. Naye lwakubanga I believe nzikiririza mu nnono ya Athens, ngenda kusigalawo ne bwe kiba kitegeeza nti bagenda kunzita, bantadde ku death row bagenda kunzita. Kati njagala okusaba mmwe mwenna abatakkiririza mu freedom of expression, mutwegatteko tufightinge for freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Even when that speech potentially offends us, we must have the audacity to defend it. We must have the audacity to defend it. Tuli bangi nnyo wano. Bwe tetuli bangi naye nga waliwo abantu abamu boolabanga we try as much as possible, even when sometimes we tend to be quiet. Naye nga we try to as much as possible to balance the conversation. Mwami Kyagulanyi balina ensobi gy'akoze tugezaako omugamba wano okoze bukyamu, kino wandibadde okikolako bw'oti, eno conversation tolina gihandolinga bw'oti. Mwami Museveni bw'akola ekyamu naye tujja ne tumugamba ebyo by'okola tebiriiyo, nkitegeero tufuze emyaka 38 naye bw'oba okyakola bino ebintu bwe biti ebitalina makulu, experience eyo yonna gy'omaze ng'ofuga eggwanga ogiyizeemu ki? Especially during this time when you are thinking about bringing your own child to replace you as if you are in a monarchy. Uganda is not a monarchy. Uganda yaffe ffenna. We need to be respectful. You need to be respectful of the democracy you fought for. Even when that democracy may not look exactly as the Western democracy. Muswaleeko. Banaye muswaleeko. Kati tunulire enguudo z'e Masaka baagisazeeko. Naye lwaki baagisazeeko? Wakkiriza ne batunda rwera bagisimbyemu omuceere, bagisimbyemu omusenyu. Nkitegeera. Environment, you're not taking care of the environment. And when those disasters happen, you start wondering why those disasters are happening. There are so many pandemics right now, besides the COVID-19 pandemic. There are so many other pandemics that Uganda is grappling with. The underpayment, the undersalaried officers, security officers, who have now resorted to killing their own bosses, who have resorted to killing their own friends, colleagues, because people are stressed. There's a lot of stress and mental health breakdown for everyone in the country. How do you govern such a country and feel comfortable about it? What happened to the Museveni of 1986? Maybe you need to stop moving in that convoy of 45 cars. How do you have a convoy of 45 to 60 cars? Nolowooza nti ogenda kutegeera abantu abali ku ground ebizibu bye bayitamu. No wonder enguudo ne bazikuyisako nga zirimu potholes. You don't feel them because you are being driven in the best cars. It's not sustainable. That kind of leadership that you want to leave to our country is not sustainable. Weyita jjajja, bajjajja babeera abantu ng'abantu bategeevu. They think about abazzukulu. Bagamba abazzukulu ngenda balekera gundi ki? Which life am I going to leave to my grandkids? As a jjajja, this is something you should be grappling with yourself. What kind of country are you going to live for your bazzukulu? We see you pose with your bazzukulu mu bifaananyi. But is that the country they really want? And if these kids have gone to school in abroad or in some of the most elite schools in Uganda, they should be able to question themselves. They should be able to sit down around the table ne bakugamba naye jjajja kino kyokola tekiriiyo. Bazzukulu baba nga tebalina that mind questioning some of the wrong things you are doing as a leader, then you have not done a great job as a parent, as a grandpa, but also as a leader. Kitegeera fedda mu Buganda basadde baffe baatukubanga emiggo nga tukoze ensobi, si lwakubanga baali tebatwagala. They wanted us to become better citizens. Nkitegeera if you have bw'oba olina abazzukulu abo b'opoozinga nabo mu bifaananyi nga this is the kind of leadership you are leaving back to the country, you should be ashamed of yourself. Your grandkids should be ashamed of you. I would like to assume that Natasha is an intelligent young lady. Not really young, but yeah, an adult lady. She should be an intelligent one. Is she comfortable with what she sees in the country? Potholes muzirabye nga bazoogerako. Mwami Spy akoze omulimu mulungi nnyo ku Twitter obalaga to expose the wrong. Banaye bwe tusirika mmwe mulowooza tuli basiru. We are not stupid. We are not bogus. N'okuvaayo okwogera bino is because we are patriotic. We love that country. We want the best for that country. Do you want the best for that country? Is that what you really want for that country? Think back in 1986 when you came to power. Is that what you envisioned? Newankubadde ng'oyagala okonsolidatinga amaanyi gonna okitegeera within your own group, think about the country. Ensi girowoozeeko gambe naye ddala bino bye nali ndowoozaako mu 86. Some of us, our parents fought alongside you. They did. Naye when they come back today, what are you going to tell them? If they came back today, what are you going to tell them? Nekirala njagala bamwami Kintu Musoke. Biki bye balaba, ebintu bye balaba mwami Kintu Musoke. Is that it? Banaye. Come on, guys. We need to be mindful of the country we are governing or the country we are developing. Ne bonatta abantu bonna ojja kutta Isma Olaxess Sali aveeyo. Kitegeera ojja kusiba Mayanja Sali aveeyo. Kati Fazir Mayanja bwe kiba nga kituufu nga wamukutte omwakutte waki? Fazir Mayanja is a political analyst. What he says, everything that he says is what he is supposed to say as a political analyst. Together, he is a political analyst who is NUP leaning. That does not mean that he does not love his country. It does not mean at all that he doesn't love his country. I have not proved anything. Simanyi oba bituufu oba si bituufu. Ne bwe kiba nga kituufu nga wamukutte. Nga mwamukutte oba gavumenti yo yamukutte. I don't know. Simanyi oba omanyi oba tomanyi, but this message is going to you as the president of the country. Bwe kiba nga kituufu nga mwami Mayanja bamukutte nga bamukwatidde ku airport. Is that the kind of promotion you want for your country? Mwami MK agamba nti ayagala okureplacinga. Is that the kind of leadership he wants to bring to the table? Nti abantu bonna bagenda okukola political analysis bwe banajjanga entebe nga mubakwata. Is that what you want for that country? We would like to believe that Uganda is not North Korea. We would like to believe that people like Fazir Mayanja are not going to end up like Khashoggi of Saudi Arabia, that they are going to be respected. I think it is important for us to protect freedom of expression, to protect freedom of speech, even when it offends us as individuals. Omuntu ne waba nga agenda ku-offending, at least give him an opportunity to express themselves. Engage at an intellectual level or at a ghetto level or whatever level you want to engage at. But engage, bawulirize. Whichever conceptual framework they bring to you, whether it is the ghetto framework, whether it's the ghetto conceptual framework or the intellectual conceptual framework, try to understand why they are frustrated. What happened to Mr. Museveni, who used to walk around Kampala? Go to our videos. What happened to that guy? And this son of yours who wants to take over the leadership, your leadership, has he read books? Does he understand how you became president of Uganda? Isma Olaxess bamutta batya nga yabadde awagira ggwe, abadde ayogerera ggwe. If you cannot protect the people who speak for you, how are you going to be able to protect all others? This is not a joke. This is an important conversation for us to have. And I think we must have it. We should have it. For 38 years, we have not had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have not had that conversation. Truth-telling. When you came to Luwero, you massacred over 500,000 Baganda to take over the leadership of Uganda. We have not had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have not had the truth-telling about what really transpired. Whether you did really have to kill over 500,000 people to become president. If we are to evaluate what really happened during that time, perhaps we could also call you a terrorist. Wantuyinza kutta abantu 500,000. Ngate okeleminga nti nzize banunula. You have killed 500,000 people and you are telling us that you're banunula. What's the difference between you and Habyarimana, who killed millions of Rwandese during the genocide? What's the difference between you? These are questions we need to interrogate carefully. And the only reason we are engaging in this conversation is because we love that country. We want that country to thrive. We have family in that country. We want those people to thrive because when those people thrive, we thrive too. People complaining about the exorbitant taxes that have no structure whatsoever. KCCA neja ne bacharginga taxes, ne URA nayo neja ne bacharginga taxes. Ngatetegede na kutegeera reporting yeriwa. What's the reporting about? Like abantu bananyini maduuka tebakoze reporting ntuufu gwe jonoja n'ogamba agwe kati mpa million 3. Katotegede na kutegeera bintu ki byatunze. Magoba ki gafunye. You don't do tax returns, you don't build roads where there's nothing in hospitals, but you are busy advocating for universal health insurance. Nga ne sente za NSSF zenyini abantu balemeddwa zifuna. Abakadde ba complaining wano bulijjo nti sente zaabwe bazibye mu NSSF. You have failed to fix those seemingly minor problems, and you want oyagala bidala. You want to create another insurance, so-called insurance, another tax. Enensi yaffe ffenna, Uganda yaffe ffenna. Twazalibwa Uganda. Eyo Uganda nsi yaffe ffenna. And until you sit down ogamba naye mwana, this is that time bomb that I need to take care of before it actually explodes. until you are courageous enough to engage with the people on the ground, nobabuuza banaye what's going on, ne bakubuulira, you are going to be surprised. You can only force people to do what they don't want for so long. We do not want to end up as Sudan. We do not want to end up as Libya. We do not want to end up as Egypt. And right now, is okuba ng'obiraba nga ebiri far-fetched. Naye teweeyibaala. Abantu si basiru. Ne bw'onyigiriza ennyindo ennyo gireeta ki? Ojja gireeta omusaayi. Waliwo abantu abasirise, abakonjo basirise. 2016 wagenda egundi n'otta abakonjo oba abakonzo, n'obatta n'otwala ne kabaka waabwe oba omumbeere n'omudetaininga mu Buganda. He has been in Uganda for more than 5 years now, in exile. When we don't talk about these things, toza twabyerabira. Tetwabyerabira, we just tukutunula tugamba no girls tuli basiru. We are not stupid. We hope you can take this opportunity to figure out what's going on and fix it. Because as Isma Olaxess once said, every day brings you closer to your graveyard. Every day brings you closer to your graveyard. Of not just you. Nange wekito wekiri. Every day brings us closer to our graveyard. I hope when that time comes, Ugandans won't come to urinate on your grave site. There's a lot to talk about. Naebyo njogedde bimala. I want to take this opportunity once again to remind everyone who can speak or write that it is incumbent upon us to double down on keeping the government accountable. It is incumbent upon us to defend freedom of expression even when it offends us. It is incumbent upon us to love our country to the bone. Njagala obbaagaliza Sunday ennungi ne wiiki ejja ey'omulembe. I've been quiet not because I have nothing to say, but I'm making an evaluation on how to come in and how to become more impactful in educating not just our leaders, but also the people on the ground. We love our country and we shall continue speaking for our country. My name is Henry Sally for the African Alumni Association. God bless you and happy Mother's Day. I hope it's going to be a great day for all of you. God bless you.